The warning klaxons pierced through the silence of deep space, jolting Cassandra Reed awake in her pilot's chair. Her salvage ship, the Horizon Seeker, had picked up a distress signal, something she hadn't expected to find in this remote sector of the Carina Nebula. "Display source," she commanded, her voice still rough from sleep. The holographic readout showed an unfamiliar energy signature, definitely not human in origin. Cassandra's heart rate quickened as she ran her fingers through her short auburn hair, a habit she'd developed during her decade of solo salvage work. The vessel ahead was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Organic curves melded with crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with an inner light. But something was wrong. Deep gashes marred its beautiful hull, and debris scattered around it like fallen stars. "This is Cassandra Reed of the independent salvage vessel Horizon Seeker," she broadcast on all frequencies, responding to your distress signal. "Do you copy?" Only static answered her hail. Cassandra checked her sensors again. There was still one life sign aboard, but it was fading. She had a choice to make: follow salvage protocol and wait for backup, or risk everything to save whoever was trapped inside that dying ship. "Computer, begin docking procedures," she said, already securing her emergency gear. Her mother had always said her heart would get her killed one day, but Cassandra couldn't bear the thought of someone dying alone in the void. The docking collar extended, connecting with the alien vessel's emergency airlock. Cassandra double-checked her suit seals and grabbed her medical kit. As the airlock cycled, she tried to quiet the voice in her head telling her this was a terrible idea. The interior of the ship was even stranger than its exterior. Bioluminescent panels cast everything in a soft azure glow, and the corridors seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting ever so slightly. Following her scanner's readings, Cassandra made her way deeper into the vessel. She found the survivor in what appeared to be the command center. At first glance, she thought it was a statue. A tall, elegant figure with iridescent skin that shifted like the surface of a soap bubble. Then she saw the dark fluid pooling beneath it and realized she was looking at blood. The alien's eyes snapped open, revealing pupils like liquid mercury. Cassandra somehow knew. Tried to move, but collapsed back with a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Without thinking, Cassandra rushed forward to help. The alien recoiled, raising a hand that crackled with energy. Cassandra froze, showing her empty palms. "I'm here to help," she said softly, knowing her words wouldn't be understood, but hoping her tone would convey her intentions. "You're hurt. Please, let me help you." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then the alien's hand dropped, and she slumped forward. Cassandra barely caught her before she hit the deck. Up close, the alien's skin was warm to the touch and seemed to shimmer with patterns that shifted like northern lights. Getting the unconscious alien back to the Horizon Seeker was a challenge, but Cassandra managed it through sheer determination. In the ship's small medical bay, she finally got a proper look at her patient's injuries. Deep lacerations that seemed to have been caused by some kind of energy weapon. As she worked to stabilize the alien's condition, Cassandra couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped into something much bigger than a simple rescue. The technology on that ship, the weapons that had damaged it, none of it matched anything in human space. The alien stirred on the medbed, those mercury eyes focusing on Cassandra with laser intensity. Instead of fear or aggression, there was something else in that gaze. Curiosity, perhaps even wonder. "I'm Cassandra," she said, pointing to herself. Then, moving slowly, she offered a small cup of water. The alien studied it for a moment before accepting it with graceful fingers that reminded Cassandra of piano keys. "Nixus," the alien said, her voice like distant chimes. She touched her chest, then gestured to Cassandra with what could only be gratitude. As Cassandra smiled in response, proximity alarms suddenly blared through the ship. On her screens, 3 vessels had just dropped out of FTL, their configurations matching the weapons signatures that had damaged Nixus's ship. The hunters had returned to finish what they'd started, and Cassandra had just made herself their target too. The three hostile ships closed in on the Horizon Seeker like predators circling wounded prey. Cassandra's hands flew across the control panels, bringing her ship's defensive systems online. Beside her, Nixis had insisted on leaving the med bay to reach the cockpit, her iridescent form wavering with each step. "You should be resting," Cassandra said, though she knew the alien couldn't understand her words. But Nixis' intent became clear as she pointed at the navigation console, then made a series of graceful gestures in the air. A holographic interface suddenly materialized, showing complex energy patterns that Cassandra had never seen before. The hostile ships opened fire, their energy weapons carving purple streaks through space. Cassandra executed a desperate evasive maneuver, but Nixis grabbed her wrist. The alien's touch sent a strange tingling sensation up Cassandra's arm as she guided their hands together over the holographic controls. Suddenly, the Horizon Seeker's engines pulsed with new energy. The ship moved with impossible grace, dancing between the enemy fire as if it had become an extension of Nixis' fluid movements. Cassandra watched in amazement as her salvage vessel performed maneuvers that should have been impossible for its bulk. But they were still outnumbered. A glancing hit rocked the ship, sending warning lights flashing across every console. Nixis' silver eyes narrowed, and she began manipulating the holographic interface with increased intensity. Symbols and patterns Cassandra didn't recognize swirled through the air. The space around them seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Then, with a flash of light that left Cassandra seeing spots, they vanished. The hostile ship's weapons fire passed through empty space, where the Horizon Seeker had been moments before. When Cassandra's vision cleared, she found herself staring at an unfamiliar starfield. They had somehow jumped several light years in an instant, without using conventional FTL drives. Nixis slumped in her chair, clearly exhausted by whatever she had done. "That was incredible," Cassandra breathed, helping the alien back to the medbay. "But who were those ships? Why were they after you?" Nixis seemed to understand the questions, even if she couldn't answer them directly. She pressed her hand against a blank wall panel, and suddenly the surface came alive with images, star maps, ship designs, and what appeared to be tactical data. But what caught Cassandra's attention was a symbol that appeared repeatedly, a fractured star within a black circle. The alien pointed to the symbol, then made a slashing motion across her throat. The meaning was clear enough. These people, whoever they were, meant death. But why? What could make them hunt someone across the stars with such determination? As if reading her thoughts, Nixis activated another hologram. This one showed a massive structure floating in space, a ring-shaped device that seemed to pulse with the same kind of energy that had allowed their impossible jump. The alien's expression grew solemn as she pointed to herself, then to the device. "You're its guardian," Cassandra guessed, beginning to piece things together. "And they want to steal it." Nixis nodded slowly, clearly pleased that Cassandra was understanding. She then pointed to her wounds, and mind being overwhelmed by multiple attackers. The story became clearer. She had been defending something incredibly powerful, something that could revolutionize space travel, when she was ambushed and forced to flee. But before they could communicate further, Nixis's wounds caught up with her. The alien swayed, her iridescent skin dulling noticeably. Cassandra helped her back onto the medbed, checking the bioratings with concern. Whatever method she had used to jump them to safety had taken a severe toll on her already weakened body. As Cassandra worked to stabilize her patient once more, her mind raced with the implications of what she had learned. She was now involved in something far bigger than a simple rescue. Somewhere out there was a piece of technology that could change everything. And there were people willing to kill to get it. Looking down at Nixis's unconscious form, Cassandra made a decision. She hadn't survived 10 years as a solo salvager by getting involved in other people's problems. The smart thing would be to drop her passenger at the nearest safe port and forget any of this had happened. But as she watched the gentle rise and fall of Nyx's chest, saw the determination that had driven the alien to protect her secret even while grievously wounded, Cassandra knew she couldn't walk away. Whatever this mysterious device was, whatever forces were trying to steal it, she was now invested in seeing this through. "Rest easy," she told her unconscious companion, adjusting the medbay's environmental controls to better match Nyx's unique physiology. "We'll figure this out together." Hours passed as Cassandra kept watch over her alien passenger, dividing her attention between monitoring Nyx's vital signs and scanning for any sign of pursuit. The Horizon Seeker drifted through an unfamiliar sector, its engines running silent while Cassandra tried to make sense of the star charts Nyx had shared. A soft chime from the medbay console drew her attention. Nyx was waking up, her iridescent skin brightening as consciousness returned. The alien pushed herself up, moving with more strength than before. She touched the bandages Cassandra had applied and inclined her head in gratitude. "We need to find a way to communicate better," Cassandra said, reaching for her tablet. She pulled up a basic translation program she'd used during past salvage operations. It wasn't designed for completely unknown languages, but it might help establish a foundation. Nyx watched with interest as Cassandra began the painstaking process of building a simple vocabulary. The alien proved to be a quick study, grasping concepts rapidly and offering corrections through gestures and drawings. Hours flew by as they worked together, gradually constructing a bridge between their languages. "Ethery," Nyx said, pointing to herself. Through their improvised communication, she explained that her people were known as the Keepers of the Ways, ancient guardians of technology left behind by a long-vanished civilization. The device she protected was called the Nexus Gate, a powerful transportation hub that could instantly connect distant points in space. "Raiders," she continued, bringing up the image of the fractured star symbol. "Seek Gate, break seals, release chaos." Her mercury eyes darkened with concern. "Not understand power, destroy everything." Cassandra frowned, processing this information. "The Raiders, they've attacked others besides you." Nyx nodded gravely. She manipulated the holographic display to show a series of locations, both human and alien vessels that had been attacked over the past several months. The Raiders weren't just after the gate. They were systematically eliminating anyone who might stand in their way. "My ship," Nyx said, pointing to the salvage readings Cassandra had taken, "has beacon. They'd follow soon." As if summoned by her words, the proximity alerts began to wail. Multiple ships were dropping out of FTL, their energy signatures matching the raiders who had attacked them before. But this time, there were more of them, much more. "Can you do that jump thing again?" Cassandra asked, already moving toward the cockpit. But Nyx shook her head, her skin paling with effort as she tried to access the energy that had saved them before. "Too weak," she admitted. "Need time heal." Cassandra's mind raced as she assessed their options. The Horizon Seeker was a sturdy ship, built to withstand the rigors of salvage work, but it wasn't designed for combat against multiple opponents. They couldn't run, and they couldn't fight. Not conventionally, at least. Then her eyes fell on the salvage equipment in her cargo hold, and a desperate plan began to form. "Nyx," she said, pulling up the ship's inventory, "how good are you with improvised weapons?" The alien's mercury eyes gleamed as she understood Cassandra's intent. Together, they began to work, racing against time as the raiders closed in. They converted salvage drones into automated decoys, rigged mining charges into makeshift torpedoes, and reprogrammed the cargo bay's magnetic grapples for offensive use. As the first raiders came into weapons range, Cassandra couldn't help but smile grimly. They were expecting to find a wounded Ethery and a simple salvage pilot. Instead, they were about to face two determined women who had turned an entire ship into one massive trap. "Ready?" she asked Nyx, who stood at the auxiliary control panel, her iridescent skin now glowing with battle-ready intensity. The alien's response needed no translation. a fierce grin that showed she was more than ready to make their attackers regret their choices. Together, they turned to face the oncoming storm. Two beings from different worlds united in their determination to survive. The space around them lit up with weapons fire, and the battle for their lives began. The raiders attacked in waves, their ships moving with practiced coordination that spoke of extensive military training. But Cassandra and Nixis were ready. As the first volley of enemy fire approached, they launched their improvised countermeasures. Salvage drones darted between the incoming ships, their transponders modified to broadcast false sensor readings. The raiders' formation broke as they reacted to phantom targets appearing all around them. Cassandra used the confusion to slip the Horizon Seeker through gaps in their attack pattern. Now, she called to Nixis, who activated the repurposed magnetic grapples. The powerful electromagnets, normally used for securing derelict vessels, latched onto two raider ships. Before their pilots could react, Cassandra fired the grapples' retraction cables at full power, sending the enemy vessels crashing into each other in a spectacular collision. But their victory was short-lived. The remaining raiders regrouped, adopting new tactics. Energy beams sliced through space, catching several of their decoy drones. The Horizon Seeker shuddered as glancing hits struck its reinforced hull. Shields failing, Cassandra reported, wrestling with the controls. We need something bigger. Nix's mercury eyes narrowed in concentration. She gestured to the mining charges they had modified, then pointed to a specific pattern of stars. Through their basic communication, she conveyed her plan, using the charges to trigger a chain reaction in a nearby gas cloud. It was insanely dangerous, the kind of maneuver that could just as easily destroy them as save them. But as another hit rocked the ship, Cassandra knew they were out of options. She nodded to Nixis and began plotting the approach vector. The Horizon Seeker dove toward the gas cloud, its engine straining as raiders pursued close behind. Weapons fire lit up the void around them, each near miss bringing them closer to destruction. Cassandra's hands were steady on the controls, but her heart pounded in her chest as she counted down the distance. At the perfect moment, Nixis deployed their makeshift torpedoes. The mining charges streaked into the gas cloud, their detonators modified to create a precisely timed sequence. For a moment, nothing happened. Then space itself seemed to ignite. The chain reaction was more spectacular than they had anticipated. The gas cloud erupted in a massive explosion, sending a shockwave of superheated plasma in all directions. Cassandra had already started their escape burn, but they weren't quite fast enough. The blast caught the Horizon Seeker's stern, sending them tumbling through space. Warning lights flashed across every console as systems overloaded. In the chaos, Cassandra felt a cool hand grasp hers. Nixis pulled her into a strange embrace just as the ship's artificial gravity failed. When the tumbling finally stopped and Cassandra could see clearly again, she gasped. The raiders were gone, either destroyed or scattered by the explosion. But the Horizon Seeker was badly damaged, its engines barely functioning and life support operating on backup power. "We did it," she breathed, looking at Nixis with a mixture of relief and disbelief. The alien smiled back, though her iridescent skin had dulled with exhaustion. Their celebration was interrupted by a new alert, a massive energy signature approaching their position. Cassandra's heart sank, thinking the raiders had returned with reinforcements. But Nixis' reaction was different. The alien straightened, her eyes bright with recognition. A ship emerged from FTL, unlike anything Cassandra had ever seen. It was clearly Etherian design, its crystalline hull pulsing with the same energy that Nixis had used to save them earlier. The ship dwarfed the Horizon Seeker, its presence both beautiful and intimidating. "The Guardians," Nixis explained through their basic translation system. "They come." As a beam of light from the massive vessel enveloped their ship, Cassandra realized their adventure wasn't over. It was about to enter a whole new phase. She looked at Nixis, who had become more than just a rescued stranger in their short time together. The alien nodded reassuringly. understanding the unspoken question in Cassandra's eyes. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The HFY vessel's transport beam deposited the Horizon Seeker in a vast crystalline hangar. As emergency repair drones swarmed around her damaged ship, Cassandra stood beside Nixus, facing a council of beings who shared her companion's iridescent beauty, but carried themselves with an ancient dignity that filled the chamber. The council's leader, whom Nixus had identified as First Guardian Lyra, spoke in the musical language of the HFY. Thanks to their improvised translation work, Cassandra understood enough to follow the discussion. The raiders weren't simply pirates or mercenaries. They were members of a militant faction called the Void Breakers, who believed that all advanced technology should be freely available, regardless of the consequences. The Nexus Gate Network, Lyra explained, her voice resonating like crystal chimes, requires careful balance. Used wrongly, it could tear reality itself. We guard it not to hoard power, but to prevent catastrophe. Holographic displays showed the true scope of the threat. The Void Breakers had already breached several smaller outposts, gathering pieces of ancient technology they didn't fully understand. They were drawing closer to unlocking the gate's full power, which could unleash devastating consequences across multiple star systems. You fought well, Lyra continued, her mercury eyes fixing on Cassandra. Few humans have earned the trust of an HFY warrior as you have with Nixus. Fewer still would risk their lives to protect our secrets. Cassandra felt Nixus's hand slip into hers, a gesture of solidarity that transcended their different species. I couldn't just stand by, she said simply. Not when I understood what was at stake. A ripple of appreciative murmurs passed through the council. Lyra raised her hand, and the chamber's center opened to reveal a stunning sight. A miniature version of the Nexus Gate, its ring-shaped structure pulsing with contained energy. The time has come, Lyra announced, to forge new alliances. The Void Breakers grow stronger because they adapt, incorporating techniques and technologies from many species. Perhaps we, too, must evolve beyond our ancient ways. The implications of her words hung in the air. For millennia, the HFY had worked alone, carrying their burden in isolation. Now they were proposing something unprecedented, a partnership with humanity, beginning with the woman who had proved her worth in battle alongside one of their own. We offer you a choice, Cassandra Reed, Lyra said. Return to your life among the stars, with our gratitude and reward, or join us as a guardian, working with Nixus to protect the balance of power in our galaxy. Cassandra looked at her damaged ship, thinking of her solitary life as a salvager. Then she turned to Nixus, seeing in those mercury eyes the promise of something greater, adventure, purpose, and a bond that defied the vast distances between their worlds. I'll need to upgrade my ship, she said with a smile, squeezing Nixus' hand, and learn a lot more about HFY technology. Joy radiated from Nixus's skin in waves of iridescent light. Lyra nodded approvingly, and the other council members raised their hands in a gesture of acceptance. In that moment, witnessing the birth of this new alliance, Cassandra knew she had found something she'd never expected in the vast emptiness of space, a true home among the stars. The ceremony that followed was brief but meaningful. Cassandra received the mark of a guardian, a crystalline implant that would allow her to access HFY technology. The Horizon Seeker would be rebuilt, incorporating advanced systems that would let her stand against any threat. As she and Nixus later stood watching the repair work, Cassandra's new implant hummed in harmony with the ship's enhanced systems. Ready for our first official mission together? She asked. Nixus smiled, her response carrying the weight of promise. Together, she agreed in carefully practiced English. We guard the ways between stars. Outside the crystalline windows of the HFY vessel, the galaxy spiraled on, vast and mysterious. But Cassandra was no longer alone in facing its challenges. She had found not just an ally, but a friend who understood the importance of protecting the delicate balance of power that kept their universe stable. The Horizon Seeker would soon fly again, carrying its human captain and her ethery partner on missions that would take them to the farthest reaches of known space. There would be more battles, more challenges, more moments when their combined strength and ingenuity would be tested to their limits. But as Cassandra looked at the stars alongside her new companion, she knew she wouldn't have it any other way. Sometimes the greatest adventures began with a simple choice to help someone in need, and sometimes those choices led to destinies greater than anything they could have imagined. The story of the human salvager and the ethery warrior had only just begun.